So higher assets, higher liabilities, net income lower in initial years because you record interest and depreciation. The combined impact of these two would be higher compared to the lease payment. In later years, net income is higher. Why? Because interest component will drop. As interest component drops, overall interest plus depreciation would become lower than lease payment. Total net income over all the years will be same. Operating income higher. Why operating income higher here? Because you are recording only a portion of payment, that is depreciation, as operating expense. Remaining is being recorded as financial expense, which comes after operating income, compared to operating lease where whole of it will be recorded as operating expense. Cash flow from operations higher. Generally, if your net income is if your operating income is higher, then your sorry, so cash flow from operations is higher. Why? Because as your operating income is higher, that means you are not recording whole of expense as operating expense. If you are not recording whole of it as an operating expense, your cash flow from operations will also be higher. On the and some of it would be recorded in cash flow from financing. Why? Because when you repay loan, that outflow goes into cash flow from financing. So some of it would go in cash, some of the outflow will go in cash flow from operation and some would go in cash flow from financing. While in operating lease, all of it will go to cash flow from operation. So cash flow from operations and operating lease will be lower. Total cash flow, if I sum up all these, will be same because in the end you are making a total lease payment. So here you will classify some of it as operating and some of it as financing. Here you will classify all of it as operating. Ratios, if you know the impact ratio, you can easily find out. So current ratio in finance lease, current ratio is lower because your payable, interest payable will be higher. As there is interest payable, it will be lower. Working capital ratio lower, again current asset minus current liabilities. So if current liabilities are higher, then it will be lower. As asset turnover lower. Why? Because asset turnover is sales upon asset. If asset is higher, asset turnover will be lower. Return on asset lower. Why? Because it is net income divided by asset. Asset is higher, net income is lower in initial years, so it is lower. Return in later years, net income will be higher, and as net income is higher, this impact will more than offset increase in assets, so it will be higher. Return on equity lower for the same reason, as net income is lower, it will be lower. Debt to asset higher, so debt to asset, debt is higher, assets are also higher, but this impact on debt will more than offset the impact on asset. In percentage terms, it will be higher, so it is higher. Debt to equity higher because debt is higher. So if you know the overall conceptually, if you know how does it impact financial statement, you should be able to find out the impact on any of these ratios. Should not be a big problem. Remember, higher or lower does not mean higher or lower compared to previous year or compared to base case. It means higher or lower compared to operating lease. When we say higher here, that means higher compared to finance lease, and when we say lower here, it means lower compared to operating lease. So far what we did was from perspective of lessee. From perspective of lessee, we made this schedule. If we look at it from perspective of lessor, it will be opposite of this. So for lessor, instead of lease liability, it will be an asset which is lease receivable. Instead of this interest accrued, it will be interest receivable. Instead of this payment being paid, it will be received by the lessor. So for lessor, again everything will be same. Only difference is the definition of these numbers or amounts will change. Everything which is a payable here will become a receivable for lessor. Here is the example. So again, starting with the same amount, all the amounts are same. Only difference is there for lessee it is payable, here it is receivable. All the lease amounts are same. For lessee it was cash payment, here it is payment received. All the amounts are same. For lessee it was interest payable, here it is interest receivable. Reduction of lease receivable, again for lessee it was reduction in payable, here it is reduction in receivable. As it continues to receive, it will continue to reduce, and at the end it will be 0. So anything which is being paid by lessee is being received by lessor. So everything is same, only difference is the payment there or expense there becomes an income here. Any problem? And if it is operating lease, lessee will record this as operating expense and lessor will record it as operating income. So that is about operating and finance lease or direct finance lease. There is another type of finance lease which is known as sales type lease. So far when we talked about leasing, that was a financing being done by lessor. So for example, there is a product A for $100. Lessee wants to buy this product, but lessee does not have money. So what lessor do is lessor gets it for lessee and transfers it to lessee through financing. So what is the business of lessor? Business of lessor is that it is providing financing on purchasing this product. This product has nothing to do with lessor. Lessor is not making money by selling this product. Lessor is making money by providing financing. And what is the income for lessor? Income for lessor is interest income. There is no income from trading this. Lessor is not actually in the business of selling this product. Lessor is just providing financing. So for lessor, income is interest income. There can be another case in which this lessor has a business of this product. So lessor makes it for $100 or buys it for $100 and then sells it for $110. So in this case, lessor is trading the product. When it trades the product, it is making money on this trade. So this is a kind of sale which lessor is making. Lessor bought something and sold it, or produced something and sold it. Lessee does not have money to pay for it. So lessor says, okay, I will also provide you financing. Do not pay for it, pay to it right now. Do not pay for it right now. I will provide you financing. And when lessor provides financing, lessor charge interest. In this case, lessor has two sources of income. One being interest income and other being profit on sale of product. This $10 and then this interest income. This is known as sales type lease. Sales type lease is the one in which lessor is actually getting two sources of income. One by selling the product and other by financing the product. So obviously when you are into sales type lease, you are selling something. When you sell something, that gives revenue. So that income should also be recorded. So there will be two incomes recorded on P&L, profit on sale and interest income. Profit on sale will be recorded once when you have sold it. Interest income will be recorded throughout the life of the financing, like it is done in finance lease. So at the start, the entry should be that revenue credit and receivable or cash, whatever it is, and P&L credit, and this differential, which is the income, it is debited. This $10 receivable, and then as you move on, interest income will be credited, cash will be debited, or receivable will be credited and cash will be debited. So this series of accounting would go as it is, as is, like happened in previous case, but there will be an addition. That addition will be, now you will also record an additional revenue. That is the only difference in sales type lease. For example, Cell now manufactures machinery and enters into an agreement to lease a machine on 1st January. Under the lease, the company is to receive 4 annual payments. Starting on this, Cell now is confident that payments will be received. The fair value of the machine, so similar example as before, same numbers. Fair value of the machine is 100,000. Fair value of the machine and present value of lease payments are each 100,000, and carrying amount of machine is 90,000. Carrying amount is 90,000. Fair value and present value of payments is 100,000. So that means this difference is a gain which lessor is making, and that gain should be recorded as income for the lessor. Useful life is this. The Cell now shows income of 17,132 related to the lease. How? This 10,000 will become an income, and in addition there will be interest income, which we calculated in previous example. So total income in first year will be 10,000 plus 7132. 10,000 gain on sale of machine and interest revenue of 7132. So only difference is that you now record an additional income, which is income on selling the asset. This is known as sales type lease. This you can go through. We have already discussed that what is the impact of different types of leases on balance sheet, income statement, and statement of cash flows. So that was about leases. In leases we have operating lease, we have finance lease. In finance lease we have direct finance lease, or we have sales type lease. And this was leases. Another type of liability was bonds, and now we have pension fund and post retirement benefits. So this reading only gives you an introduction to post retirement, post employment benefits. The details are discussed in level 2. So in level 2 you have long readings or detailed discussions on this topic. Introduction of pensions and other post-employment benefits. So when we talk about post-employment benefit, there are two types of benefits: benefit plan or benefit structures, defined contribution plan, and defined benefit plan. So what is defined benefit? In defined benefit, what you do is that you define a benefit for your retirees. So for example, you say that I will pay you 10% of this and this, or I will pay you XYZ amount after retirement. So after retirement you will continue to take XYZ amount. This will be based on your service, this will be based on your retirement salary, etc, etc. So there is a specific amount which you have to pay in future, and that amount will depend on the service, and that amount will depend on the retirement salary and whatever it is. So what is the benefit to retiree? Benefit to retiree is that this amount is fixed for him. No matter if market goes up or market goes down, company makes money on the fund or company loses money on the fund, company is liable to pay this XYZ amount, and retiree will get this XYZ amount. So retiree is safe, company is at risk. Why? Because in order to pay this amount, company will invest amount as of today. Company will accumulate amount and invest it. When company invested, there is a risk that maybe that investment goes down, or maybe return is not sufficient enough. Even if return is not sufficient enough, company will have to put in more money into the fund to pay off this XYZ amount, because company is liable to pay off this XYZ amount. So in this case, company has defined the benefit. When it has defined the benefit, now company has to pay this benefit no matter what. Even if company makes money on fund or company loses money on fund. If company loses money on fund, company will have to put in more money. This is defined benefit plan. Better for retiree but very uncertain for company. In defined contribution, what company do is that company contributes something. Company makes a fund and says, I will continue to contribute XYZ amount into this fund and I will invest it. Now whatever the return is or whatever is accumulated, that will be paid. So company contributes, whatever is accumulated, that will be paid. In this case, company does not have a liability to meet a specific benefit. If returns are higher, retiree will get it. If returns are lower, retiree will not will get a lower return. So in this case, company is safe, but retiree is at risk. So over time, companies have moved from defined benefit to defined contribution plans. But still there is a large portion of defined benefit plans. Companies are trying to move towards this structure, and now new structure is defined contribution, but still there are large funds or large organizations which are still have defined benefit plans. So this defined contribution is not a problem, because whatever you put into, whatever you contribute, that will be used to pay off. There is no risk. If it is higher, higher payouts, lower, lower payouts. Defined benefit is a problem because you have a liability and you have to manage this fund to meet that particular liability. So there is a benefit which you have to pay in future. That benefit is your liability. So you have a pension liability. In order to meet that liability, you accumulate assets as of today. That assets are plan assets. So you maintain or manage plan assets to pay off pension liability. Over time, its value can go up or down. Over time, its value can go up or down. Its value can be higher than liability or can fall below the liability. Ideally, it should be higher than liability. If it falls below liability, then company will have to put in more amount into this plan assets in order to meet the liability. Any confusion so far? Okay. So moving on, when you have a pension obligation or a liability, how do you record it on balance sheet? You record it by calculating the present value, right? On balance sheet, you should record the present value of liability. So for calculating present value, you need a discount rate. What discount rate should you use? So remember, you use high quality corporate bond yield as discount rate. High quality corporate bond yield is used as a discount rate to estimate the present value of obligation. We discussed that you have assets to meet liability. If assets are greater than liability, this means you are in a net pension asset position. On net basis, you have assets. If liability is greater than asset, then you have a net pension liability. Net pension asset means assets are greater than liability, and net pension liability means liability is greater than assets. As long as you have net pension asset, you are in a good position. If you have net pension liability, then that is a risky position. That means you will have to inject more money. How does this net pension asset or liability change? So they change generally. If I speak generally about it, liability will change if, let's say, employees expected age change, or if employees are doing working for more years than estimated, or if let's say discount rate has changed. Or if let's say return on this plan assets have changed, so plan asset will change. So due to these reasons, a plan asset or pension liability can change. IFRS defines this change or divides this change into three components, and US GAAP divides this change into five components. When you look at the components will almost be similar. Only difference is these three would be further broken down into five by US GAAP. But you should remember the components and the difference between both IFRS and US GAAP. So IFRS divides it into three components: employee service cost, net interest expense, and remeasurements. Employee service cost is past service cost. For example, an employee has worked for 10 years. So for this 10 years, some liability has become due, that when he retires, you will have to pay for this 10 years of service. Now he works for additional year to complete 11 years. This 1 year is increase in benefit with one more year of service. So past service cost plus present value of increase in benefit with one more year of service. This is employees service cost. When you go into US GAAP would treat these as two separate components. So remember the difference. Here they are accumulated. In US GAAP, they will be treated as two separate components. Net interest expense, net pension asset or liability multiplied by discount rate. When you go into US GAAP, it will calculate return on plan asset separately and on liability separately. Here they have just taken net interest expense and net pension asset or liability. Remeasurements, for example, actuarial gains or losses. For example, let's say that average life expectancy changes. That is a change in actuarial estimate. So that will lead to actuarial gains or losses. Difference between actual return and interest expense, that is remeasurement. So these are broadly three components in IFRS. Remember the names, remember what is included in these. So if you are asked which one of the following is a component or which one of the following is recorded in remeasurement or in net interest expense in IFRS, you should be able to answer that. In US GAAP, there are five components: service cost for this period, past service cost. In IFRS, these two were combined. Here, these two are different. Interest expense on beginning obligation, expected return on plan assets. In IFRS, we took net asset or liability and multiplied it by discount rate. Here, these two are separate. And actuarial gains and losses. So remember the difference in US GAAP and IFRS. Remember what are the components in IFRS and what are the components in US GAAP. Funded status. What is funded status? It is plan assets minus defined benefit obligation. And remember one thing, that in US GAAP, you report this funded status on balance sheet. Balance sheet should show the funded status. Funded status should be mentioned on balance sheet. If plan assets are higher, that is overfunded. If plan assets are lower, that is underfunded. So this is about pension accounting. This is just a very brief introduction. Details are discussed in level 2 and then level 3. This is it about the reading.